was one of only two players who made all ACC first or second team last year
Right.
to return. Most of the guys went pro. And Nora is supported by a couple of juniors and a couple of seniors, and Chris Mack has got this team playing together well.
I guess the one thing I've often wondered, and I'll hit you with it as well, 2013, these various schools between Michigan and Louisville played, and that title got vacated. Really? I mean, I understand they did what they had to do. So who's really the national champion? We didn't have one, but yet everybody made all that money off jersey sales, tickets.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. What else are you going to do, though? You got to penalize them somehow.
Yeah, right. Okay, so those games never happened, and the only ones that really benefited by are ESPN Classic and all that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
So any other final thoughts about Duke and Michigan State that you want to talk about?
Well, there's two teams that, right now they're still trying to find themselves. Both teams are younger than people thought. Michigan State lost Josh Langford, their senior guard. He's got a foot problem that forced him to miss the second half of last season. And he had surgery. They were hoping he'd be ready to go this year, and then he had a setback just like a week or two into practice, and they had to have surgery again. So, so many of these basketball players play the sport year-round, and they have brittle feet. You got to worry that he's not going to come back at all this year. So Michigan State's going to have some younger players stepping in to fill in that role. They're definitely capable of being a Final Four team with Cassius Winston. Cassius Winston hasn't hit his stride yet either. They're All-American point guard. He's Big Ten Player of the Year. He's still trying to get himself back mentally to normal after his brother's suicide death. It's been affecting him quite a bit, but he's starting to come back into form. Duke, same thing. Trey Jones is the only starter out of those four freshmen that came back this year. And they do have Vernon Carey, who's their 6'10" big man, and I think he's going to be a force the rest of the way. He kind of struggled the first couple of games, but he's starting to find his game. He's had to play a little bit more inside than he did in high school. So I think Duke and Michigan State are both unfinished products, but both very, very capable of getting to the Final Four.
One thing I want to add before you get off the air, just to let our audience know that Tommy and I will be doing a sports exchange special, and we're going to cover lots of college sports next week when Candy and I hit the road. So we're going to keep the momentum of the sports exchange going on. I'm going to isolate some of our best guests and give them an opportunity to go in depth. So we'll go out there and put those things on social media. And Tom, as always, you'll get as many opportunities as we can to promote your book because it's a really great book anyways. And during the holiday time of the season, folks, if you don't go out there and get this book, I think you're really missing out on some great literature. And follow the Shanahan Report. So, Tommy, you're going to have enough material next week when we're on the road to fill 45 minutes to an hour with me?
I'll get to work on it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, at least I know that you got to go to the Shanahan Report to do it. One other thing I should point out before we close, the man was in Hawaii last week covering the Maui Invitational. Is that a bucket list type of item?
Yeah, that was my bucket list. I loved it. And while I was over there, also I saw Army play at Hawaii. I write a lot about Army. So next week is the Army-Navy game. It's on December 14th. So that's another subject to cover.
Yeah, was that the first time you've ever done the Maui Invitational, or was that a one-time bucket list? You can do it every year.
I'd love to do it every year. I told my wife to get a job over there so I could do it.
Oh, look at this guy.
Yeah. But no, that was my first time, and yeah, it was a bucket list. I've watched the tournament several years, but while I was watching it last year, when Duke was in it, they advertised next year's field. I saw Michigan State was in it, and I got to check this item off my list of things I've done.
So, did you wear a green shirt since you're an ACC?
Oh no, I had to be a reporter. I was wearing Hawaiian shirts, but I had to be a reporter.
Oh, really? Okay, good stuff. Hey, you know what? We got to deal with it. Hey, just a little preview of what Lewis and I are up ahead. If you bother to watch a Conference USA football game with Florida Atlantic and UAB, Lewis and I and Candy will be there. So just think about it.
Sounds good. Yeah, if you want to read any of my Maui stories, go to ShanahanReport.com.
By all means, do that. So, meanwhile, Tom, glad to have you on the program. I'll contact you. We'll get ready for Thursday's program, and then you and I will do some major planning for next week. Louis, you want any quick closing thoughts?
No, I mean, nice to see Michigan playing well under first-year head coach Juwan Howard go from unranked to number 4 in the nation is something.
Well, hopefully they'll remain undefeated tonight, although it looks like Louisville seems to have their number. But, again, we'll know when it's 40 minutes have expired for sure. So, but meanwhile, Tommy, glad to have you back on the air. A 5-hour time difference last week obviously made it hard, but then again, we were worried about it because I knew where you were at, and I was watching those games, wondering if I could see you out there anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. And it was neat watching your Facebook post about where you were at. So it's keeping tabs on you, Mr. Shanahan. Let me tell you, buddy.
We were having fun.
No, well, that's good. Well, meanwhile, we hope you had a great Thanksgiving out there, and we look forward to doing some good work with you during the holidays. Okay, Tommy?
Sounds good.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Have a great rest of the night, Tommy. Thank you very much for being back on the program.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So our next guest is going to be, obviously,
David Levin.
That's
correct? Yeah, we're going to talk some Jacksonville Jaguars. So tell me a little bit, Scott. I know we've been busy with this show and everything we got going on the Tribune, but how happy are you to see one of the first topics I believe we discussed before we started when we started this Sports Exchange, or at least the revamping of it, was Juwan Howard going over to Michigan, and I know there was a little bit of skepticism in this building about how well he would do, but so far it looks like the honeymoon phase is going strong. He looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't think there was ever a honeymoon phase. I knew that when Tom Shanahan, and I knew this, and all Tom did was simply reinforce it, was bringing in Phil Martelli was the key thing. You got a guy that's been at St. Joe's forever, okay, who's been a great coach, has won in the NCAA tournament, and worked in there, and then you got him as your right-hand man. And that goes back to what I talked about earlier with Beltran, whether you'd have Riggleman or any young guy who needs an experienced right-hand guy. You know this in baseball and anything for that matter, and you need to have that. And Juwan Howard was smart enough to bring a guy of Martelli's caliber, and he was, that's, I think, the key for a lot of these guys to do well. You need somebody with experience so you can handle the communicative side. Not like Juwan doesn't know the X's and O's side. He's a Michigan man in every sense of the word who has NBA experience, and Martelli is coaching college. I think it's a great combination.
Yeah.
Just think about it.
And we didn't talk about it, but I believe Kansas State's playing really well, too. I believe they're 8-0, if I'm not mistaken. So they're playing really well, and they're in the top 5. But, yeah, look, Juwan Howard has been fantastic thus far. I think he's been, obviously the addition of Martelli to that coaching staff, and it's important. It reinforces what you just said. You need to have good people around you who know the game, and not to say that Howard doesn't, but he's never done it at this level before. He's never coached at the college level. So, the fact that he's having this early success is fantastic. And, Louisville's a scary team. They have some names on there who are going to probably wind up in the NBA in the next year or so. But the fact that, Howard's been able to get this kind of performance out of this team thus far is great. I mean, for you, other than the Tigers, it's probably a great time to be a Michigan sports fan.
I would say for the most part. But meanwhile, joining us here in the South Florida Tribune Network is David Levin. David, how are you feeling? I know you weren't feeling good on Sunday, but hopefully you got a lot of energy for what we're going to do next Sunday.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on, and I apologize for the weekend.
Oh, don't worry about it.
I never miss a game, so if I miss a football game, it's got to be something. But,
not worried about it.
But I do feel better. How's everybody doing? Hey, Lewis.
Hey, David. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well. Hey, Lewis, I'm following you on Twitter. I'm retweeting everything you're telling me.
Are you retweeting everything I tell you to do? Then again, that's probably too much for you to handle, right? Because I do everything.
Well, I don't know. I was told to do it, and I obeyed.
That's okay.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Hey, all he's doing is toting the company line, so...
We don't know which host to start, though. Do we start me or Scott? And that'll lead us to the first topic that we're going to talk about, I believe, right?
I don't know.
The quarterback situation over down by you.
Hey, listen, Mr. Levin, it's all about growth with the company. You know that as well. Whether it's Lewis, myself, and you, since you're a part of the team, it's all good, buddy. It's all...
I'm just waiting on the Christmas time. That's what he's talking about.
Well, I'm waiting for us to go ahead and get together when we're supposed to give it to you. Just
well,
teasing
this is
you.
true. I get that part.
Okay,
Anyway,
no problem. Well,
Yeah, let's talk
hey, if I don't give you a hard time, it don't make any difference because you know how much I think about you. You're good. We're good, buddy. All right, with that said,
Let's talk a little quarterback match.
go for it. All right, fire away.
We have a new quarterback that was the old quarterback, replaced the new quarterback that got hurt, so the new quarterback had to come back in. It's exhausting at some point, but we have a new quarterback in Jacksonville. Doug Marrone made the decision on Monday to make it permanent, at least for the next 4 games, or the final quarter of the year, which is a good move. At least I think so. I don't know what your guys' feeling is, but Nick Foles doesn't look like he's ready to play. He looks timid in the pocket. He's having trouble with hitting his receivers. And on some of those plays, watching it on TV, it looked like he really didn't want to take a hit on Sunday.
Well, I watched it in person. That was a tough situation. Anytime you have a guy that, number one, gets sacked 3 times, has an intentional grounding call inside the 10, and throw an interception, 5 miscues in the first half, you know full well, the folks that did show up that day, it's safe to say that when Gardner was in, being one of the guys, they needed something, but the hole was too big.
There's 2 ways to look at this, at least maybe 3, because if you look at it from a pure money standpoint, Foles is a guy going forward, whether it's because of a situation at the end of this year, and we hope that something like that doesn't happen, or next year because they're still on the hook for the second year of his guaranteed contract. Conventional wisdom says this coaching staff isn't going to be here next year. Probably a new head coach, new coaching staff, maybe a new GM, maybe a new executive vice president of football operations. It could be a complete overhaul. So we don't know what's going to happen. The person who's brought in to run the show has to know that Minshew is the guy that will develop into a good quarterback, but he's not going to be, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to be Drew Brees. He's not going to be, insert name. He's a good, serviceable quarterback who thinks on his feet, has great, mobility, and he's a gunslinger. And that person that comes in has to mold around that quarterback. So who does that become? If it's Foles that they decide to name the starter, you have to know what you're getting because if you replace the head coach, I've got a statue for a quarterback who throws the ball really well when he's accurate, but he has no mobility, and the chances of him getting hurt again are that much greater. Pick your poison with that one.
I don't know. It is what it is. I just know that they made a decision to go with Minshew for the last 4 games. You have a guy with a high intelligence and a lot of mobility, and the offense showed a lot of spark in the second half. What else did I need to see? When a guy throws for 93 yards and he's being run out of a stadium, I don't know. My name is not Ray Charles. I knew what I saw that day.
There you go. I love it.
No disrespect toward Ray Charles, but I saw some things.
But it's also a song reference, David.
Am I going to get a Stevie Wonder comment too? Or
yeah, for once in my life, we know who the quarterback is. There's another song reference.
Yeah, well, we may be talking about Stevie Wonders, but Scott wasn't wondering what was going to happen in the second half. They needed to make a change. Go ahead.
Now, David, that leads me to ask this question because I think it presents a weird dichotomy, and Shad Khan's probably pacing around like the mayor of some town right now. If, say, hypothetically, Minshew goes out and they finish the year 7-9, he goes 3-1 in the next 4 games that they played, and we outlined it last week that their upcoming schedule is a mixed bag of good and mediocre teams. What do you do with Foles going into next season? Do you start the 2020 preseason kind of debating who your quarterback's going to be only because of Foles' price tag? He's going to make $15 million next year. I don't think that 88 is fully guaranteed. Or do you try to trade him?
Okay, so here's the breakdown on that. There's never really a quarterback competition in camp, and I know that we talk about it. It's something everybody wants to create. It makes good drama and it makes great preseason stories, but there's never really a competition. It's 2 quarterbacks going out there. Whoever has the best stats basically becomes the quarterback. I think with Foles, there's multiple ways you can look at it. He can retire, as there have been